Hello and welcome. I'm Maggie Moreland and I'm a certified holistic health practitioner, and I'm extremely passionate about all things women's health and wellness. I've been traversing my own health and wellness journey for quite some time now, and I've picked up quite a bit of information. I would say a little bit of information and some experience here. So I just like to share what I've learned and what I'm currently experiencing with you guys in hopes that you find it helpful or inspiring on your own health and wellness journey. Today, in particular, I wanted to talk about stress, but more importantly, I want to talk about what we can do, or easy things we can do, to mitigate our stress and just relax a little bit. So before we get started, I'd just like to share a little disclaimer that I am not a medical professional, and I am not here to prevent, treat, or diagnose any medical condition. I'm simply here to share my experience and what I've learned on my journey in hopes that you'll find it inspiring and, for your own health and wellness journey. But without further ado, let's talk about stress. So you all might know what stress is. I'm sure we have all experienced stress, and you probably experienced stress multiple times already today. So stress is an inherent instinct that we have, and ancestrally it would be used in situations. Say we got in a situation where a tiger was chasing us. Well, our body can switch into a stressed out state or a fight or flight state. It can actually switch into another state, release certain hormones that will help us run faster and be more agile and not be hungry, not look for food, just so that we can get out of this potentially deadly situation. So in the past, having a stress response has been something that we've used for survival. Well, nowadays, being stressed out is something that's so normal, and we get stressed out on the regular by pretty mundane and ordinary things. So a lot of us are in a constantly stressed out state, and this can wreak a lot of havoc on our bodies. So I know I mentioned, that stress response and some hormones being released. So when we do flip into that fight or flight state, or when we have a stress response, our body will actually release cortisol and adrenaline. So cortisol is known as like this stress hormone, but it's actually not what makes us feel stressed out. Cortisol is actually what helps us keep going when we are in a potentially deadly situation. So cortisol is what will lower appetite and spike our blood sugar temporarily so that we can keep going and run from that tiger. And adrenaline does something very similar. So I'm sure you guys all know what an adrenaline rush is, but it literally is like an instant surge of energy. And this is also something that helps us run faster and creates more agility so that we can get away and survive from this tiger chasing us. When our stress levels are chronically high, so when we are chronically in a stress out state, our cortisol levels are also going to be chronically high. And when we have chronically high cortisol levels, it can actually tell our bodies to do a lot of different things that we don't really want them to do, like store fat and lower metabolism, slow digestion, and lose your appetite. And these are things that we need to actually thrive and feel good. But when we're in that chronically stressed out state, our body's only goal in mind is to survive, and it thinks that we are in a potential deadly situation when we may not be. So just when we are chronically stressed out, it's not the best thing. We want to minimize stress as much as possible in our everyday lives, and I'll be sharing very soon some very easy ways to minimize your stress. But first I'd like to talk about some of the common stressors. So we actually have 3 different types of stress. So we have physical stress. So this is like if you were to take a freezing cold shower or jump into a cold pond, you would be physically stressed out. Also, if you physically exert yourself with strength training or something like that, that can cause your body physical stress. You also have emotional stress. So this, like, say you get in a difficult conversation with your partner or you're going through a divorce, this can be emotionally stressful. Also, if you're sitting in traffic, that can typically cause some frustration and emotional stress. And then you also have your chemical stressors. So chemical stressors are kind of like the catch-all, but this can be from inflammatory foods that you're eating, possible additives and pesticides, things like that. But it can also be stress that's coming from your personal care products, like environmental stressors, things that we're not really supposed to be consuming or putting in our bodies that are getting in our bodies and creating an inflammatory response or stress response inside of our bodies. This can also go for things like pollution, things like that, any environmental stressor. So we have the 3 types of stress, and we come in contact, like I said, with a lot of these on the regular. Environmental stressors, we really don't have a lot of control over, other than controlling what we're putting in and on our bodies. But in terms of like pollution and just environmental toxins, we don't really have a lot of control over those. So I try not to focus so much on avoiding them, because you can go kind of crazy and become really anal and almost orthorexic about trying to avoid all of the environmental toxins. But I like to really focus on what I can control about my stress, and that is mainly, you know, how much physical stress am I putting my body under and why, and possibly how can I reduce that or provide myself enough rest and restoration time. But also, how can I reduce my emotional stressors and emotional stress responses. I think those are 2 of the really important ways that we can minimize stress, and they are the 2 areas of stress that we have the most control over minimizing. So I think it's really worth focusing on both of those areas. So some of the ways that we can actually eliminate or reduce our stress, and I have about 6 of them that I'll share with you here, and they're very easy and very effective, and I like to use them in my personal life, and I have noticed a more calm me since I have implemented them, but also as I continue to maintain the habits of doing them. So number 1 way to minimize your stress, I'd say, and I can attest to this, is meditation. So a lot of people think that meditation has to be some long drawn-out thing that you have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to do every day for 2 hours a day, blah blah blah. Well, I'd like to ditch that idea of meditation, and I'd simply like you to think of meditation as a time for you to just drop into your body, to connect to your breath, and really focus on your breath. A lot of people think that meditation is about clearing your mind and getting rid of all your thoughts, but really it's just an intentional relaxation period. So even if I only meditate for 3 minutes a day, that 3 minutes allows me to really relax and get in tune with my breathing, and kind of creates this space between my thoughts and my actions. And that kind of creates a space between me reacting to something that could be potentially emotionally stressful, and just respond in a better way. So meditation kind of opens this gap where we can actually think about how we want to respond to a situation instead of just reacting to a situation. There are also a lot of studies out there that show that meditation has and can decrease your stress levels. And like I said, it is super easy. It doesn't have to be an elaborate thing. 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes is substantial. And all you have to do is don't focus on not thinking or clearing your mind or whatever. simply sit there and focus on taking your in and out breaths. So simply focus on your breathing, and you can set a timer if that works for you. And I just, like I said, sometimes, I don't have a whole lot of time, but I just like to make sure that I do this either in the morning or the evening before I go to bed, and I notice 100% difference when I do. The second way that we can minimize our stress, and I guess this kind of ties into the first way, but by focusing on our breathing. So by simply taking intentional deep breaths throughout the day, it actually flips the switch from that fight or flight, that stress response, which is your sympathetic nervous system. It flips the switch from being in that very reactive state, stressed state, flips it to being into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is more relaxing and calming and restorative. And so by actually just taking deep breaths, deep diaphragmatic belly breaths, so instead of taking shallow breaths in your chest, really focusing on expanding your belly and taking a full deep breath and then letting out a full exhale, it will actually calm you down. And I've used this when I have like anxiety, but I notice, because I do work a 9-to-5 job, if something is a little stressful and I feel tense and pent up in my body, I notice if I just take a couple deep breaths, I really relax and open up. You can also do like box breathing, so you can time your in and out breaths, but also have a hold in the middle. So if you do like 4 breaths or 4 seconds in, hold it for 7, exhale for 8, that has also been shown to reduce your stress and just relax your body, which is really nice. Also, if you are in a potentially emotionally stressful situation, say very difficult argument with somebody, difficult conversation, it does really help to take some deep breaths before going into that conversation to relax your body. And you just approach it in a different way, in a very intentional and responding instead of reacting type of way. The third way that we can reduce our stress is by making sure that we are eating enough. So when we undereat, we actually are kind of telling our body that there is potentially a famine and we might run out of food. One, this makes our body hold on to our fats. So you might actually notice if you're eating not enough, you might hold on to weight just because your body thinks you're not going to get any food anytime soon. So you got to store it. But this also actually causes our body's physical stress. So when we don't eat enough, we're not providing our bodies with enough fuel, so our bodies will actually start to break themselves down to provide the fuel that we need to survive. So it's crucial, especially being a female, to provide yourself with enough nourishment. You want to make sure that you are eating protein, carbs, and fats, because we need all of those foods and all of those nutrients to have a healthy body and to be relaxed and not be stressed out. And that leads me into number 4, which is do not restrict carbohydrates. For a long time, I have personally restricted carbohydrates. One, because I thought sugar was the devil. However, I'm coming to learn that sugar might not be as bad as it's made out to seem, and we do need carbohydrates and sugar to be healthy. And sugar and carbohydrates actually have a sedative effect. So when we eat sugar and carbohydrates, we actually are telling our body it's okay to relax, which is important. So if you do ever find yourself in a potentially stressful situation, having a little bit of food, like carbs and protein and fat, will actually calm you down. And not only will it calm you down, but by making sure we're eating enough food and getting carbohydrates, but also eating all of the macronutrients like proteins and fats with those carbohydrates, we set ourselves up for success to have balanced blood sugar. So when our blood sugar is all over the place, when we're on a blood sugar roller coaster, that actually causes our body's stress. So like when our blood sugar is really elevated because maybe we ate too much carbs with not enough protein and fat, and then we have a blood sugar drop, that is telling our body that where it's a stressful situation, which causes the release of cortisol and adrenaline and then the stored fat, and the whole process of the hormones happens. The whole stress response process happens, and we want to minimize that stress response as much as possible, because it's not good for you. It's not good to be stressed out all the time, and we deserve, one, to be relaxed, but we deserve to eat enough food and be well nourished. Like, we deserve that. The fifth way to minimize your stress is by making sure you're getting enough sleep. So sleep is really important, and when we don't get enough sleep, we aren't ourselves. We aren't 100% us. We actually need a certain amount of sleep, and I believe it's 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, because we go through different cycles in the night, and there's actually a deep sleep cycle that is restorative and relaxing, and we need to get to that deep cycle, because in deep sleep we also produce certain hormones that we need to balance out all of our other hormones, but also to feel great. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when you don't get enough sleep at night, you're more likely to kind of be on that edge where you are most likely going to react in a stressful way or react in any situation. I noticed for myself, my morning routine starts with my night before. So if I prioritize getting in bed early, relaxing, reading my book, whatever, but just getting enough sleep, I know that I am already setting myself up for success for the next day. And that's really important to me. And the sixth easy way that you can reduce your stress is journaling. So I like to journal every day. Sometimes I don't, and I would love to be better about it, but journaling allows you to get out anything that you need to get out, but it also just allows you to see your thoughts on paper. And I find this to be, one, really reflective and helpful, especially being a growth-oriented person, but it also is really helpful when you're in a situation that is frustrating, or you do have some pent-up emotion. It's really good to get it out and just release it on the paper. And then I guess I could just add a seventh reason, or a seventh way to reduce your stress, and that would be grounding. Like, personally, I just love walks in nature, and they're just so relaxing to me. But if you actually go stand outside with your bare feet, you will actually tune into the frequency of the earth, and it is extremely relaxing, and it brings your energy down into your body, and it can be very stress relieving. So grounding, great. Walking in nature, also great. Hugging trees is also, gives you that same relaxing effect. But these are just some of the things that I do personally to reduce my stress, and I'd love to hear some of yours. Like, I love bubble baths too, and doing art and things like that, but I'd love to hear some of the ways that you guys like to mitigate your stress levels, because I'm always interested in learning something new, but it's also cool to kind of get some feedback from you as well. Well, other than that, I don't really have anything else to say, so if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more from me about my personal experience, but more importantly, women's health and wellness, go ahead and subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon.